Alright, here's my view on atheism. A bunch of you guys that watch my stuff, either on this channel or over at the Tim channel, have seen my vlogs and have asked me, well, sometimes you tell stories from Buddha and Jesus, and then you turn around and say you're not religious. Alright, let me explain something. Those are stories. The stuff about Buddha was written down 500 years or so after he was born. Christ, at least a generation after he was born, probably. After he died, probably. I don't see them as valid historical text. I see them as stories, like Aesop's or Grimm. There's less animals and less talking foxes. At the time, people were very superstitious. It's very understanding, and what's cool about looking at theology is you can literally see how men started to develop a construct of theoretical means, and it was cool. But as soon as we found science, and as soon as we found ways to correlate things and show causation, well, we didn't have to listen to what a bunch of people said 2,000 years ago, or 2,500 years ago, or 1,600 years ago, or however long it was. That this person, my biggest problem with religion is this. It's not necessarily our belief in something. It's our belief in what some dude, for the most part, in some instances females, like Ruth and a couple other people in Old Testament text. But for the most part, what it is what a bunch of dudes told us what happened. And what a bunch of dudes told us how God visited them. And they all contradict each other. It's funny, even the Judeo-Islamic Christian God, the God of Abraham, constantly contradicts themselves depending on culture. And then you have the Universalists that, well, maybe he's being different things to different people. I don't know. I guess my biggest problem with it is this. Until some kind of rational way that this God exposes himself to us, I don't think that a rational, intelligent God would expect humans, when they hit a certain point in theoretical modeling and experimentation and scientific method, that he would expect them to still believe. Now, I know some religious folks are going to say, well, then that's even the better time to have faith, even when it seems like you shouldn't. I'm not saying you shouldn't have faith. What I'm saying is, and I'm not saying that there aren't spirits or there aren't God or there aren't, and I don't know, it could be, somebody could be right, for all I fucking know the Mormons are right. I hope not, but I mean, what I'm saying is I doubt that any of them are. And the reason why is because we barely understand the way life works. We barely understand the way genes work yet. We barely understand how the universe works yet. We're still got so much to learn. So to even think that we could go from knowing that much to understanding this infinite being called God, that's irrational as hell, and it's illogical, and that's what bothers me about most theologies, that issue right there. I think that humans should be more honest with themselves. Now, I kind of see God probably people saw infrared light 200 years ago. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know enough about the history of the study of infrared light, but it would be my assumption that not many people even thought about it, or none at all, 200 years ago, or even 100 years ago, for that matter. Not many. And, okay, so, but now we have, glasses and goggles we can put on where we can see infrared light, like night vision and things. And so simply because we didn't understand it or didn't even know it existed 100 years ago didn't mean that it didn't. And now we have a set of glasses or goggles that can help us see infrared light. We have instruments that allow us to see things that we didn't see before. And to correlate that, through controlled experiments, and whether that's exactly what that was or not, and show high correlation and say, well, there must be infrared light that this instrument's seeing. Alright? Well, we can't do that with God. And I'm not saying that one day we may not have that. One day maybe we'll have a set of goggles where we can see ghosts walking around. But until such time, the man mambo jambo, just because your mind makes you believe something or makes you rationalize something to be so, doesn't, I mean, you can't, it's what people really do believe, that they can believe their eyes and ears. They really do. And they can't, really. I mean, your brain works in very interesting ways, and sometimes it deceives this consciousness that you believe that you have, and that's a completely different subject. But that brings me into atheism. That, well, I mean, I know atheists that are existentialists, and I know atheists that aren't. They're more behaviorist. And either way, I believe that anybody that's a zealot in something they believe in, I think the debate is good. I think there are people that debate theology quite a bit that aren't like zealots. And then I think there are zealots that are just trying to bash. On my channel, you see me, go at religions for some of the basic belief structures that a good portion of that religion believes. And my question isn't, do all people believe these horrible, insidious things that are in your text? The question is, why aren't you speaking out against them, and why aren't you reforming? And I mean, you can believe whatever the fuck you want. It doesn't make it right. And it's an opinion. And I just find that opinions are usually better used when they're an informed opinion. And I think that now that we're getting to a point where we can begin being as rational as we can and theoretical as we can, we need to start sitting back and realizing that anything we're learning is already knowledge that's out there. Simply because we're learning it doesn't mean that wasn't already true. Simply because we learned it doesn't mean that truth wasn't true. I mean, when Newton said, "What goes up must come down," just because he was the first guy to figure that out doesn't mean that that's not the way it was beforehand. Is kind of what I'm saying. So, that we're not learning anything new. We're just learning things that are already there. We just don't know. And maybe that's what God is. God is just the things we don't know, and that's basically all God is. And then you have a group of individuals that listen to a guy that lived 1,600 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or whatever, long ago, say what they believe in God. And I'm sorry, but in the same way that I won't pick up a medical journal written in hieroglyphics in Egypt and use that advice to help my health, I'm not going to pick up a 25-year-old, 100-year-old text or 1,600-year-old text telling me something about something as complex as God, when we've come to know so many things since that book was written by a dude, period. So, in the same way that I'm not going to listen to first century science, I'm not going to listen to first century theology. Can you people, you theists, deists, could you come up with something that is like rational? I mean, at least there are some schools of theological thought where they're trying to like connect it with rationality, like John Paul II, wrote a bunch of ecclesiastical things, basically saying that Adam and Eve are mythological, and that evolution is the way nature happens, and that anybody that doesn't see that with their own two eyes and the amount of evidence and controlled evidence that we've seen, that it defies logic, and that they need to accept that it didn't happen the way it said in Genesis. So, at least there's like one rational dude. Too bad, like, the entire fucking Catholic Church are a bunch of zealots and don't, but at least he did. So, anyway, that's my point on it all, and that's, I think that atheists that, like, believe in an irrational point of view, that they know God doesn't exist, I think it's just as irrational to say that you do know God exists.